my gosh. So I'm actually not a big fan of Halloween, but I kind of secretly am. Like
I think a lot of people are like that,
yeah, I don't like face paint.
right?
Like it kind of like makes me feel a little icky.
I don't like that either.
Um, like not gross icky, but just okay, maybe a little
A
gross, but
little
not like
gross icky.
creeped icky, but like a
Hmm.
little gross. Like oh, why do you?
Like you're clumped on.
Yeah.
Yeah, my when I do the tours for Grim Ghost
Uh
tours,
huh.
my costume is the White Lady,
Oh.
and I have to wear a ton of makeup on my
Oh
face.
wow.
It's not
Yeah.
my most favorite thing ever. I mean,
I
I always look
yeah.
really cool, but I'm like, this is caked on.
Yep. So either I mean it's funny how that is, and we'll dive more into your experience with Grim Tours. But this episode's a little bit of a special episode for those of you that are watching. We have decorations. We try to deck it out as much as possible, but I'm always like, oh, maybe we could have done this or this. But this will be good enough for now.
But you have these cool goblets.
We do. That
What else
tastes
do you need?
exactly right.
It's perfect.
It is perfect. That is exactly right. As I put my Vernors and keep it in the can. And we've got
Behind
these
the
cool
goblet.
candles, and we've got these cool ghoul things from the dollar store. I'll take those. And
Yeah.
we're excited. In fact, actually, it feels like it just got a little bit more yellow in here, or is that just me? Might be just me.
I Now that you say that, I can see it a little bit. I wasn't thinking that before, but
The ghosts are already here.
they're following me.
They are following you. All right, guys, welcome to episode number 23 with Emily Clark. Super excited. This is the first of two. We're going to do another one the week before Halloween. And so we're going to, very similar, but here we've got our professional. You are a professional ghost hunter, ghost guide, a tour
Mhm.
guide. You are, I mean, this is, I don't know if this is what you, I mean, you basically do this for a living.
I No, I don't.
Ah,
Now
darn
it's
it.
just a hobby because it used to be something that I did more.
Okay.
I started in 2013, and I used to do the tours all on the weekends, which is when we have them Thursday, usually Thursday through Saturday, and then during Halloween we open up a few more days and we get
Cool.
another bus in and that kind of thing.
Nice.
But I don't think I've done a at least not in our buses. I haven't done a tour in a while. I have been doing some tours in the Fear Factory in
Okay.
October for
In
the
Salt Lake
last
City.
for the last 3 years. But now it's really more like a hobby. I thought at some point I was going to quit, but I was like, it's so interesting and there's so much good material for stories, and I was like, I'm just going to stay. If you ever need me, I will come. But yeah, I don't. So no, I don't do it all the time. But it's still, it's still something that I really enjoy.
They do on a regular
into.
basis. I mean, at least seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that anyone that has this kind of gadgets probably do it for
Right.
real. So what got you into it?
Okay, so I really like history a lot, but I don't like the boring, stuffy textbook type history. And
Okay.
so, one thing I've always really
What,
enjoyed.
you don't mean you don't like textbook history?
No, it's so, at least maybe not how the teachers teach.
Yeah.
I did have one teacher in college who was amazingly interesting at how he taught, but oh, I'm sorry,
No worries.
C3PO.
C3PO is coming back from the dead too. Although he's
That
not
might
really
have been
dead.
that
but-
might have been one of the EVPs. I should check really quick. Oh,
Is it a good one? Okay,
It
we'll
might
save
be.
that one. So we've just a heads up. We've got pictures. We've got EVP recordings. And we have little object tools here that we're going to go over. So we definitely want to hear these cool gadgets. Is that the right one?
Yes, he sent her. Oh, quit. Sorry.
No worries.
The button's so tiny on this phone.
I
I'm
know.
like,
I
play.
know. And it's delayed too. So of course it's going to have a slow, like, oh, did I actually pause it?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So
So-
I got into it basically because I really enjoyed ghost tours because
Okay.
I always felt like, okay, they're going to tell us history. We're going to get some real history out of this, but at least it'll be entertaining because they're basically actors who are
Oh.
telling
yeah.
us the stories.
Yeah.
Ghost tour guides. That's basically what they're doing is putting on a show. And so I was like, I always knew it was going to be interesting. And I've done ghost tours all over the place, back east in Europe, east, west coast, everything. And I always really enjoyed it, but I was always, and still am, not as much now, but pretty skeptical. I like evidence. I like real things. I like disproving things that are obviously fake. And when I started, I actually went on a tour with Grim Ghost Tours. And it was because at the time I was in college and I was writing an article about ghost tours. And I went on the tour, and when the tour was over, I asked the guy, like the whole time I kept thinking I could do this. This is my hubris, maybe. But I was like, I'd be so good at this. And then when the tour was over, I asked the guide if they were hiring, and he said, actually, I'm leaving in 2 weeks, and we are looking for another guide. And
wow.
So I went through the process, and they got me in, and even though I thought I was going to leave, I've just like kind of hanging on. I'm like, let me go with you guys. This is really cool.
That's awesome.
I don't want to stop. It's so much fun. But yeah, once you get into it, I think I definitely was a lot more skeptical at the beginning. But then as you go through it and you start having personal experiences of your own, your eyes start to open a little more, and you're like, what is going on?
So did you believe in ghosts before you took the Grim tour, or is it just kind of like, oh, that's cute and funny?
Yes, tentatively. I'd by that point I'd already had some personal experiences in my younger life, and so I kind of felt like, yeah, there were ghosts, but I think I was always sort of skeptical, especially, and even still, when someone goes, I have the coolest personal experience, let me tell you about it, and then they're just super, wanting to get into it, and you can tell they're exaggerating, and you're starting to wonder what's real and what's not. And so I always kind of felt like there was a lot of people who were sort of disingenuous, and I didn't love that. And so I tended to be more skeptical, but
especially with like TV shows,
right.
It's like you so badly want to believe it, but it's Hollywood.
Right.
They have to have content, and they have to control the content.
Right.
And little bit of, I guess, might as well say my little ghost experiences, or at least the basics. I've actually done some ghost videos, like where we would go on ghost hunts. The first one was kind of real, and then the rest were purposely joking. Just because the first time I did it, I was like, wow, this is so easy to edit it to look like something happened, or that we are legitimately scared. And it's like, we weren't, but we sounded like it.
We looked like
We
it.
looked like it, and we ran. So,
which is scary looking. Some things after that.
And so I was like, oh man, like Ghost Adventures. I think that's the big one, right? That's still a big one, but like, man, it's like,
I enjoy watching that one, but talk about goofy.
Yeah.
When they're walking through the dark, and one of them's like, oh, something just went through my elbow. Like, you're in the dark. It could have been a spider web.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily.
And then their little orbs. I guarantee you those are computer generated.
Right.
And it makes me sad, because it's like, well, I get it. It's entertainment. I honestly believed it for probably like the first 6 episodes.
Right.
And it was when Netflix like kind of just came out, and at least on the internet, and you could binge watch things. And so my girlfriend at the time broke up with me, and so I just binge watched Ghost Adventures for like a whole night straight. And I remember
drown my sorrows in ghosts.
I remember I went to her apartment. I'm like, you are not gonna believe what I just watched. It's all real. and then I watched it again after she's like, no, it's not. I'm like, yeah, it's not. Dang it.
I was so excited.
I was so excited. And then I read up a bunch of articles about how like, oh, you can see a camera guy already in the house when they say no one's in the house, and stuff, just stuff like that.
Right.
It's like, maybe there is a real spirit there, but at least what they're saying they're experiencing is probably not authentic. So anyway, I kind of made some videos. I have since taken them down on YouTube because of embarrassment. But I do actually believe in ghosts. I do believe in spirits. I do believe in the paranormal to an extent. I want to believe. It's kind of like X-Files. Like, you want to believe. Like, what does Scully say? Like, her motto is like, I forget. Anyway, but it's the idea
It's
like
evading me now too.
it's like she wants to believe, but she's skeptical.
Right.
Even though she's had like seasons full of experiences, and she goes, nah.
Right.
I mean, you got to have someone that doubts. Okay, so
Otherwise, you don't have a show.
yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So I looked up some facts that I thought was interesting. Now this is according to a Pew poll from 2009. 18% of Americans say they've seen a ghost. So here are the facts. Ghosts and then in touch with the dead. So in total, a sample size of 2003, 18% say they've seen a ghost. 29% have been in touch with the dead. Males, 26% in touch with the dead. Females, 33% in touch with the dead. Males for seeing a ghost, 16%. Females, 20%. So a little bit higher in each of those categories. Thought that was interesting. White people. I'm just going to say white people. All right. 29% have seen or have been in touch with the dead. 17% have seen a ghost. 41% of African Americans, or here it says black, see 41% have been in touch with the dead, and 20% have seen the ghost. And Hispanics, 30% in touch with the dead, and 20% have seen a ghost. Would you believe these numbers? I know there's a lot of them.
There was a lot of them.
So 29.
But I have
go ahead.
An approximate, I think. No. I would say that probably most of those people had some kind of an experience, didn't necessarily know what it was, might not have been, may have been. My guess is probably not, but then they fed into it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, well, just as an example, people they want to believe, and they will drum up excitement to make something seem real because they want to feel like they had an experience. At the Asylum 49 in Tooele.
Okay. Tooele, Utah. Right. So we got people from all over. So
Tooele is how it's spelled.
Tooele. Tooele.
Tooele. And anyway, it's an asylum. It used to be before. So it was an asylum. It was also a retirement home recently.
Okay.
And part of it was closed off. So half the building was a retirement home and the other half was
abandoned, or
it was used actually for Asylum 49 for the haunted house.
Oh.
And also for ghost hunts, which totally cracked me up because they just had these double doors that separated
between the retirement home.
Exactly. And then they put paper on the windows so that but every once in a while you'd see we'd go in to do the hunts and we turn off all the lights and all of a sudden you just see this old person pull back and, like peeking who's in there doing what. But but now it's completely closed off. I don't know if the guy still lives there, but for a little while after they closed the retirement home, they had a guy come in with his family, and he was living in one of the rooms, and they had a little dog. And we did a ghost hunt there once, and I had that night probably 5 or 6 people out of a group of about maybe 40 to 60 people, something like that, who kept coming up to me and saying, I think there's a ghost dog in this building. And I said, no, there's a guy living here who has a dog. And they're like, no, it wasn't that. There's a ghost dog in this building. I'm like, I just told you that it's not a real thing. And you still are like holding on to this. Yeah. And in the same vein, same location, I had a group of people. I just went to the room where we sort of explained to everybody. It's sort of like a conference room. We explained to everybody what we're going to do and how it's going to go down. And everyone was already out walking around the building. But I went back just to grab some equipment, and I shut the door behind me. And as I was walking down the hall, one of our guests came running around the corner, and they're like, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Did I hear what?" I think a door just closed. And so I backtracked and I said, "Is this what you heard?" And I opened and closed the door, and they're like, No, that wasn't it. I was like,
They couldn't
yeah,
face the fact that it was.
right. They wanted
want
it to be
believe
real.
it. Yeah.
And so as far as those numbers go, I think a lot of people they want it to be real.
Yeah.
They want to believe in it. Or they want to have a story to tell.
Yeah.
Like I had this experience, because it is really cool when you have an experience and you can prove that it's real. But unfortunately, I think people miss out on the real experiences because they're so excited
Yeah.
about anything.
Interesting. So I guess I'll go into my technically 2 experiences, but really just one, because I went back. So it's in Scotland.
Nice.
Okay.
It's a really good place for a
oh
ghost
my
story.
gosh, it's Edinburgh,
Even better.
and it's in the. Have you been to Scotland, Edinburgh?
I have, yeah.
So, and that's why I was like,
Beautiful.
oh, maybe it's the Grim, because I'm pretty sure it's called Grim Tours,
It
Grim
could be.
Ghost Tours in Scotland.
It could be.
So when you said you worked for it, I was like, oh, is this the same
And
one?
are you Scottish?
Yeah. Hey, if you are, great.
Yeah,
If you're not,
ancestry.
still cool. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So this was the first time I went 2012, and we got a ghost tour, and of course they do them at night. They do have some daytime ones, but it's more popular at night. And it's in that. It's ironically, it's in an episode of Ghost Adventures. They go into the tunnels. So Scotland has this old bridge that's not a bridge
Right.
anymore, because they've just built up and up and up and up and up. And in fact, actually, when they built it, it kind of wasn't really a bridge. It was for the purpose of what it did, but it didn't look like a bridge. And so people actually, they built little caverns underneath the bridge with the different levels. Now there's no official, or there is an official map, but no one really knows like if it's accurate. Because over the last few centuries, over the last few decades, they've been digging out centuries worth of trash and housing, like living, places. Eventually, it turned into where people just dump their
Right.
rubbish,
That's
as they would say over
unfortunate.
there. And so it was unfortunate, but I mean, people have since dug it out, opened it up, and in fact, a lot of them were either places people actually lived in it, or it was like their shop. Like, okay, I'm a blacksmith. I don't know why you would want to be a blacksmith in this like tomb,
Right.
but apparently that's what they did, because where else do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I mean, there's lots and lots of stories I'm sure I didn't hear, way more experiences and stuff like that. And also like a non-ghost experience, like here is the bridge that does this, and this is the purpose of it. And anyway, not where it's like from the very beginning, because this lady came up with dreads, and a cloak, and just like spoke really funny, not just Scottish, but like, his Shakespearean,
Right.
and you're like, okay.
She was acting.
Oh, she was totally
performing for
acting.
you.
She was totally performing. It was great. Anyway, we get in, and they kind of take us room by room, and basically we go into a circle. But side note, actually, there's like you could have kept digging, or like there was like another door, and I stayed behind the group before as they went to the next room, and I opened it. And by the way, this is like pitch dark, so there's like one light in this whole room. I open it and I see like stuff, like I see rubbish, like rocks, dirt, and trash. Not modern trash, but like stuff.
Right.
Anyway, so that's side note. So there's way more to unravel there. It's crazy. So anyway, so we get to this room, and she starts talking about Mr. Boots, and Mr. Boots, how he walks around, and this is, I guess he was, I don't remember all the details. I'm going to butcher it, but he was kind of like a little, the person that would inspect the area. He was kind of more like a landlord, an overseer of it. But it's also where like prostitutes could have been. So they
Right.
kind of put that in there, like, oh, and prostitutes had no value. So if they died, which they probably did in this area, no one would care. So it was easy to just kill a prostitute. You're like, okay, that's cool. So we're in a place that was a blacksmith and where people lived. And by the way, they mentioned 2 kids. And anyway, so we're in this room, and we go into from the big room. Now we go into another small room before we head back out. And in there, this person's like, okay, all right, I invite you. And it's pitch dark. And it's probably, actually, the room's probably about as big as this room. Have you been to this one?
I saw it, and I know
Okay.
what you're talking about, but I didn't get to go inside. No.
So this person just says, I invite you to just kind of, see how you feel, see what's going on. A lot of people say they feel the spirits in this room because it's kind of a smaller room. Maybe this is where the children lived. And by the way, they know these spirits because medians have come and spoken about these people. And so it was very interesting because I'm standing in the very back because I'm kind of that person. I like to be in the back of the group, especially for things like this because I want to watch other people.
Right.
Um,
I'm actually like that too. I totally get
yeah.
it.
So and my hands are on my side, and I feel this like little grasp on my two fingers. Cold, so cold, and I'm like, oh, I mean, later now I would analyze it. Go, oh, was it wind? Like, is this? We're in a tomb basically. I mean, underground, and it's in the middle of the night, and no one's next to me because
So
I'm all the
not
way in the
likely it's
back.
wind.
No, yeah, and so anyway, I just kind of brush it off. We get up to the top where it's a pub, not a pub. It's a place where they serve you drinks, and then they kind of talk about like, oh, did anyone experience anything? And no one was saying anything, and then she talked about like, yeah, a lot of people kind of say like they feel like something touching their hands. I was like, oh my gosh, that was
just
me.
happened to me.
That was me, and I just said it like as if it was fact. Like that this would happen. And I remember another American couple in front of me just like looked at me like, okay, we are not sitting in front of this guy. They were legitimately freaked out. Anyway, that's my like one real, besides like being a kid pretending to see a ghost. Like that's like my one real experience. Now I went back.
Big one.
I was there a year ago, exactly a year ago actually. Because Facebook memories are popping up. It's like, oh yeah, I did go to Scotland again. We did the same tour, and in another room, I felt something similar. But at that point, it kind of makes me wonder, like, how much of it was mental, And same with the first one. I wonder how much of it was like a mental thing, like, oh, you're just kind of in a dark. And honestly, I did not know. At the time, we didn't really have smartphones with flashlights, or to think. You didn't do that back in 2012, really. I mean, you kind of did, but you didn't really use it for a flashlight. And so it's not like I could do this. But this time I was like, oh, I'm going to look at this room.
Right.
And anyway, and they didn't even take us in that room. I went in the room afterwards just to kind of like, oh, I'm going to go in. But it happened before that room. But it wasn't as strong. So that made me kind of think, oh, maybe it's a mental thing. Like I wanted to see. But then after we got back up to the room, way more people were like, oh yeah, I totally felt someone going between my legs like a kid. And it was just like, okay. And this time the person said the stuff beforehand. Oh, maybe you'll feel someone go between your legs or someone holding your hands. And so we significantly more people, exactly, right. More people came up with this experience like, oh yeah, that totally happened to me. And even like during the time, like when we were in the room, one lady said, oh yeah, it was the same lady. I mean, I keep saying it. Someone went between my legs. Like, okay, are you just doing this for attention or what? Like, anyway. So anyway, that's my one real experience that I feel like is real as far as.
To me, it sounds legitimate. I think if you'd been fed the information beforehand, and I'm assuming it's probably cold in there.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
It was moist. I mean, you come into. It's like going into a. I don't know how to describe it. You go into a cave.
It's like a cellar or cave.
It's like a cellar. Yeah.
Okay.
And you kind of feel like the moist in the air, musty.
But that's pretty specific for just two fingers to feel that pressure on just a cut.
Like, like I still feel it mentally.
Right.
Like I can reimagine it
so
very strongly.
That's pretty specific to me, and it wasn't something that was fed to you, and so to me that sounds more legitimate. It may have happened the second time because it was already in your head, and maybe you were expecting it. But I think we like to talk ourselves into things, and we like to talk ourselves out of things.
Yeah.
I think it's something with the human brain where we're just not quite satisfied. Like we want it to be real, but then we're like, no, it couldn't be.
Yeah.
Or we don't want it to be, and we're like, but maybe it is.
Yeah. Right.
So, but that does sound like something that I would say was probably real experience. Cool.
Nice. Professional right here said it's real. Take that, Keith Savage. He was with me. No, not that he doesn't believe me, but I think he was kind of like that American couple, like, I gotta go back to the Airbnb or to the hotel with this guy. Yeah, no, I think he can stay here.
Great.
Yeah. No, it was he actually would come with me on those video ghost hunts. So he was actually into it. So nice. It was really fun. Okay, so enough about me. You know my stance. I want to believe it. I'm not fully sure. Even with that experience, I'm like, how much of it was still mental? Or how much of it was like just the atmosphere that maybe that's what your body experiences in that room. So you tell us, convince us that this is real. You said that you mentioned the idea that there's proof. Can you prove these things to be real?
I mean, it's all yes and no. It's hard to prove. Like, how can you prove something is there if you can't touch it,
right,
or see it or hear it? Now,
there's no like actual captured ghost
right,
documented to say we're gonna study the elements of this spirit.
Exactly. I mean, like Ghostbusters. Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't have a little canister that they they can put them in and
Darn it.
like do the tests on them. But there are things like electronic voice phenomenon, EVP, where people catch voices that can't be explained, or people will take photographs, and professional photographers will look at these photographs and they can tell you this has not been doctored. And in those cases, yeah, you can say definitely this is evidence. I personally think it is evidence, but again, it's not. It's on my phone, a recording on my phone that we caught, or it's a picture that I can hold in my hand, but it's not something that's right there in front of you. So it's definitely something that's hard to substantiate. I think a lot of people try to. Some, obviously the Ghost Adventures Ghost Hunters tried, and a lot of that was for entertainment purposes, obviously. Right. But there are people who legitimately are trying to communicate with the other side, or prove that there's another side, or maybe even prove that there is a God, or make a connection with a dead family member, and you're not going to tell them that they didn't have that experience.
Do you believe in mediums? People that can connect to spirits?
Yes and no.
There's definitely plenty of fakes that have been caught.
Yes. I'm pretty not so much into psychics. I don't feel like... I feel like if I have a deceased family member who wants to contact me, they're going to come to me. They're not going to come to some random person who I may or may not go to and tell them what I want to hear. Yeah. And how would they even know? Like, in the afterlife, there's still got to be some kind of knowledge of things, right? And so how would they know to go to this person? Yeah. And then how would they know I would go to this person? Yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me. And also, I feel like it's quite a personal thing, but there are a lot of people who do believe in it, and I wouldn't necessarily want to naysay them, but for me, that's not something I really think is real. But I do have a friend who is incredibly sensitive, and she has had, she's seen ghosts her whole life. She just has sort of like a thin veil between her and the afterlife. Yeah. And again, I think a lot of people will hear this and think, "Oh, that's ridiculous," whatever. Yeah. And I would have been one of those people, except for that I know this person. Yeah. And she is not trying to be a psychic and be like, "Hey, your grandma's over here." She's just there's another one. like she's totally happy and vibrant one second, the next second she's like, we have to get rid of this bed right now. Oh man. Like, she purchased a bed from I think it was what are those sales called when someone passes away and then they go into estate sale. Yeah. I think she got a headboard. Her family bought her headboard. And she slept in it one night and just had dreams of the previous owner all night long. And then the next day she was like, get this thing out of here, and she has lots of experiences like that. And she's not trying to draw attention. She doesn't tell a lot of people. She doesn't like to talk about it a whole lot because she knows people think she's crazy. But when you know someone like that, it's, it's kind of a different thing. Yeah. So I think for some people, I think some people are just sensitive. They can feel and see things that other people can't see. But I think I'd be more likely, like with her, to believe it if it's not somebody who's trying to make money off of it or call attention to themselves or just, I don't want to talk about it. Those are the people that seem more legitimate to me.
Yeah. That makes sense. I've got an aunt and another aunt that have various claims of that, of exactly what you were just talking about, and they're pretty humble about it. So it's kind of interesting. They claim they're Harvey girls. That's their maiden name, and they claim it's a Harvey.
Harvey Jean.
Harvey Jean, Harvey gift, whatever it may be, but it's always interesting. So anyway, okay, sorry, that was kind of a sidetrack, but it still works with ghosts.
It
Like,
does.
are ghosts real?
It totally
Do
works.
mediums talk to them?
Yeah.
I think some do. I think to some extent. I don't see why not. Being a person who does believe in God, I believe that my grandma came to me in my dream shortly after she passed away, and then a couple years later. I have no doubt that it was her, and I don't think it was so much me making it up in my mind. I felt like it felt real,
Right.
So
Something that you needed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but even if it was fake, I mean, I guess cool, I mean,
Still,
it was great.
the fact that your brain could do that
Yes.
is pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
One thing I like, or I used to like to mention when I did the tours, because one of our tours is focused around downtown, and we spend a lot of time going around buildings that are sort of central to Temple Square. And so one thing that we like to mention is, if you're LDS, the temple, there's tons of people who have gone in there and have said that they have either felt or sometimes maybe even seen or heard deceased loved ones while they're inside the temple. And so it's a thing, people do have these experiences.
And how do you, I mean, as a faithful Latter-day Saint, how do you dispute that?
Right.
Like, oh, you're just making that up. Because in the temple, it's not only you're doing work for yourself, you're doing work for those on the other side of the veil, or on the other side of the next life.
Right.
And so it's a very spiritual place, in the sense that you're by proxy doing it for them. Excuse me, I need to stop drinking the Vernors. It's just like Vernors so good, the little tiny burps, just the little tiny ones. All right, so but it's like, how do you dispute that?
Right.
And I have pioneer ancestry that came to Utah very early, and they have really deep stories, and you're like, if you were to hear those stories today, you would almost be like,
What? Yeah.
But then they were just like, yeah, Noah Webster came to me while I was in my orchard.
It was a totally normal thing. Yeah.
It was like normal. I mean, I think part of it too is back then, they were very early. People were claiming to see angels, and anyway, so it's just, but on an extreme basis, almost. I shouldn't say extreme, on a way more regular basis.
It seemed almost like a normal part of their life.
Right. And so, as time has gone by, and I don't think it's necessarily technology. I do think technology does play an aspect of like, we're more into what's logical. I love that. I think that's great. Let's look at science. Let's look at numbers. Let's look at ways to explain things. But in regards to the early church of the Latter-day Saints, it's also a very eventful time. New things are being essentially restored that were once God's. So why wouldn't an angel be there?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
We're not restoring things anymore today, per se, at least. Not like
it's different.
It's different today than it was at the very beginning of the church in the early to mid 1800s. But anyway, how the heck did we get on that? Except that people claim to see these things, and I don't doubt the stories that I've read of my ancestors. I want to believe it, at least. I think they do. There's one story where one guy did say that he saw Cain. I don't think I believe that.
I have not heard that one.
There's a few. He says he saw Cain in like an alleyway in
How would he know it's Cain? Did he tell him?
He said he was Cain. And that's
but
apparently...
was he that Cain? Because
maybe
could have been a different Cain.
It could have been.
Could have been anyone.
Could have been. That's a good point. But I mean, his journal record is in the church history library. And pulled it out, read it straight from the source. I was like, okay, This is real. This guy really said he did. I mean, it's like 3 sentences.
Right.
And
oh my gosh.
But anyway, there's what?
I'm not sure how I'd feel about that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like that one, I'm like, how much of that is just phenomenon of like, oh, this guy said he did. I did too. You know, I'm not
Right.
saying that they're necessarily liars, but it's kind of like what you said at the beginning.
We want to believe.
We
yeah.
want to believe. You know, how much of it is that we want to believe. So anyway, all right. So you do believe.
I do. Yes.
You've gone through these experiences. Why don't you share some experiences? Maybe you can use some of your tools
Right.
or the EVP that you brought. And we do have
Okay.
photos as well for those that are watching. We do have photos that we've got the camera and the computer set up.
Okay.
So you can see it.
Well, I will start with a personal experience. When I first started doing the tours, and this was the very first experience that I had as a tour guide, because up until that point, I was, and I kind of look back and I think, gosh, I should have been a little nicer. And I'd only been there for a couple months, but it's typical for people on the tours to come up afterwards and say, I have a personal experience. And I just kind of smile and be like, okay, cool. And they'd leave and I'd be like, no. Yeah, I just wasn't, I wasn't quite there yet. And it seemed like there were so many of them that I just thought, what's the likelihood of that?
Yeah.
But
I like that, by the way, that you basically go, no, that wasn't real.
that.
Because if you said, oh, bless you, child, it's kind of like a
Right.
fake priest, pastor
Yeah.
or someone like,
Yeah.
I'm just doing this for money, I'm gonna bless you. You're healed, and
Exactly.
no, you're not.
Well, and there were so many of them too that you could tell they were like really excited, and you could tell also that they had told this story a lot of times,
Oh.
and that it had maybe gotten bigger and grander, and
Yeah.
like now the fish is 8 feet long, or
Yep.
whatever, and we saw 10 ghosts instead of the first.
By the
time.
way,
It
my
was-
my first story was 1 finger. Now it's 2.
oh,
Just kidding. No,
we're
it
spreading.
was 2 fingers.
It's the people who come up and they're like, they're quiet about it. They're not trying to draw in other people.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to tell me because they want someone to validate their experience instead of trying to get an audience,
Right, that's exactly why, like that lady that said that she felt someone go through her legs right after the tour guide said
Right.
people have shared experiences of kids going through their legs.
Right.
it's
Exactly.
like-
It being fed the experience
Yeah.
and then feeling it yourself,
Yeah.
or wanting to get it, get attention,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever.
So this is an EVP, electronic voice.
So I've actually got a picture.
Oh, it's a
first.
picture one. Okay.
This is a picture one. So it's the one with the yellow circle,
So
and
get
it's
there
actually
first and then-
it's actually
Oh, there it is.
wait, not that one.
Oh, it's not that
Different one. Different yellow circle.
Don't
Not that one either.
Don't share them until we get there. There you go. There you go.
There we.
Okay.
Oh wait, no. Sorry, keep going.
This one.
No,
This one.
there we go. That's the one.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have.
All right. No, it's
some
totally
kind of
fine.
Sequential order.
No, the whole point of this podcast is to be candid and unscripted. So
All right. So, if you zoom in on this photo, okay. So I should mention first. This is the Devereaux Mansion. It's downtown. It's across from the Delta Center, which is
downtown Salt Lake.
yes.
Okay.
The
Salt Lake
name
City.
keeps changing. It was Delta. Okay, Energy Solutions Arena, and now it's.
It's Vivint Smart Home Arena.
Thank you. I'll just call it the Delta Center because that's what it is
Yeah.
to me.
Okay.
So right across the street from the Delta Center is Devereaux Mansion, first mansion built in Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
And there are several ghost stories that sort of surround this place, but one of them is to do with a little girl. Now, if you look at this picture, if you kind of zoom in a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
do you see where the orb is, the little
Yeah.
circle right there? If you look right above that, right above the orb,
Mm-hmm.
the white spot, there is,
Oh, you
A
kind of see
face.
like a smile.
yep, a little face.
Holy crap.
You can see the smile, you can see the eyes, and if you look really closely, you can even see a ringlet coming down the side over here.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
the family that lived there had a daughter, and as far as we know, there isn't any record of any little girls dying there. But how this little girl, and even if you look underneath the orb, you can kind of see that you can see a body, you can see an outfit, and it's a period clothing, it's a dress.
Yeah.
And then the ringlets, everything about this little girl in this picture suggests that this is from the mid 1800s,
Yeah.
late 1800s.
Because that's when the building was
Right.
built.
Yeah. I wish I could remember the exact date, but it's evading me at the moment. But that's what this little girl looks like. so, I had been there for a couple months and I'd been telling this story. And at the time, we were allowed to go right up to the building. Security guards don't let us do that anymore. But we went right up to the building. I'm standing in front of the front doors. And this picture was one that I would pull out to show people. So nobody got it on my tour. But I'm telling this story. And again, at this point, I'm still pretty skeptical. It's probably 9:30, 9:45 at night. There are no kids on this tour. The building's closed down for the night. It's dark inside, just like it is in that photo. The lights are shut off for the night. No one's in there. And I heard a little girl giggle from behind me. And it was loud and clear. And I was like, and I remember actually turning and looking to see if there was a little girl somewhere around. And there was no one. And someone on my tour was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Does anyone have a kid here?" Like maybe I missed it because I was so confused.
Yeah.
And they said, and everyone's kind of looking around. I said, "Do you see any kids?" And they're like, "No, no." I said, sorry, I thought I heard a giggle. And then somebody else said, "I heard a giggle." And that's when so it wasn't just me. And it was loud enough that, that somebody standing about 10 feet away from me also caught sort of like the end of it.
Lauren, do you see this? I'm giving it up close. Do you see her face in there?
Yeah. And I really am one of those people. I don't scare easily. It's probably helpful for going on ghost hunts, especially too when you go in the buildings and they turn off all the lights. I'm just kind of like, I can't see anything, whatever. Not a big deal. But that one did send, I had goosebumps all over my arms. That was my first as a tour guide, because I'd had other experiences when I was a kid. I'd had a couple of other experiences. But that was the first one where I'm telling a story about a house where they're talking about a little girl that haunts it and have specific stories of things that a little girl would do inside of the house. And then all of a sudden I heard a little giggle from a little girl.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay. So that's your first experience. Mm-hmm. It's eerie, especially since you hear the laugh.
Yes. I have a rule. Ghosts can talk to me all they want. I don't have any problem with that. I've not had a lot of conversations with ghosts, but if I hear them, that's not a big deal for me. Mm-hmm. But I have a strict hands-off policy. Do not touch me. I've had other people don't have a problem with that, but I don't like to be touched. And so far, no one has touched me. So
that's
I've
good.
not felt anything, but
Dan Aykroyd says he's, we were speaking about Ghostbusters earlier. Right. Dan Aykroyd on Joe Rogan's podcast says that he has essentially slept with a ghost.
Is that why they had that scene in the movie?
Yep, that's exactly why. Because he had that he had an experience. It was very inappropriate. I'm like, what the freak? Like, how far is like touching? Like, what is going on? Yes, that was based off of that scene in that movie. By the way, growing up, we watched the TV version that was recorded. That was not in there, and then I watched the DVD. I'm like, whoa, there's a lot more in this TV than this movie than I remember. All right, so do you have an EVP for us?
Yes. Okay, so. Ooh. Okay. Let me see if I can. Come on, phone.
Dan Aykroyd also has a lot of respect for the LDS community.
Does he?
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
He likes the story of Joe Smith and the gold plates. Right. It's like, oh, you're close. You're close. But at least he's not like.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is an EVP. This was taken at Rio Grande train station. And the story goes that during World War One, is it World War One? I think it was World War One. The train station was sort of a push-off spot for soldiers. That they would take them to the train station at the Rio Grande. Their family members would say goodbye to them there, and then they'd go off to training wherever it was they were going, or to be shipped off wherever they were going. And a lot of people had to say goodbye to their husbands and fathers, brothers, friends at that station. And there was one soldier. So the story, the Rio Grande train station is haunted by who we refer to as the Purple Lady, and the story goes that her fiance or boyfriend at the time, rather, was about to be shipped off, and he decided before he was going to leave that he was going to propose to her. So he bought a ring and he had it all ready. They're at the train station, and on the train station, so to board is on the west side of the train station. If you know where the station is, it's on the west side, and that's where the trains were. And so they would have been in the back, and they would have been probably fairly close to the train tracks. He was about to pull out the ring to propose to her, but something happened and they got into an argument and they started yelling at each other, and he pulled out his ring and just took it and chucked it onto the tracks. And she, like me, I think I might have been like, how many carats was that before I ran after it? But that's not what she was thinking. She was thinking, I want my ring back. So she immediately just turned around and ran onto the tracks without looking, and was hit by a train and killed.
Oh, darn.
And then this EVP, and we also have a picture, was recorded. So we did a ghost hunt. So again, this is where we go into the building, usually around 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night, lock all the doors, turn off all the lights, and then we'll be in there until somewhere around 1 or 2 in the morning.
Which hour?
Right.
Do you believe in that? Which hour?
I don't know.
I think it's like the 1 to 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, when we were making one of our fake ghost videos, this lady totally believed us, and she told us everything. And she believed, like, she's the... Anyway.
She was totally into the witching hour.
Oh my gosh, she's like, I wake up every witching hour. I can't sleep during the witching hour. I'm like,
You must be exhausted.
You must be. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so this...
By the way, we saw her in the middle of a trail up Provo Canyon, her just sitting by herself in the dark. And she's like, "Hi guys, what are you doing?"
Was it the witching hour?
No, not quite. It was like I don't know. It was like midnight.
Lady, what are you doing?
It was really weird. Anyway.
All right, so this was recorded just on someone's phone. I think a lot of people think that a lot of ghost hunting equipment is stuff that's really expensive, but some of it really very cheap. Your telephone. If you have a voice recording on your phone, that works perfect for EVPs.
Okay.
Just record, and then later you go back and you listen with earphones, because you won't be able to hear the voices the same way.
A big difference.
Yeah, without them. And then one thing we always tell people when you're recording, when we go into the buildings, don't whisper. Because the lights go off and everybody has this automatic response to want to whisper. But part of how you know if it's you or if it's something that maybe can't be explained is you use your inside voice, your normal inside voice. Just don't whisper, just talk normally. And then that way when you hear whispering in the background, that's when you can go back and say, was this someone from our group, or is this a voice we can't account for?
Got it. And
that was what happened here. And I will let you hear it, and then I will tell you what it says in case you don't catch it. Did you catch it?
Short room in the ply room.
Okay, so the intonation is, I think my boyfriend pushed me.
Well, okay.
I'll play it again. I think my boyfriend pushed me.
Whoa. Wow.
So for a long time we'd been telling this story that that she ran onto the tracks, and then we catch this. I think my boyfriend pushed me. Play it one more time.
I guess it sounds like a guy's voice to me, so that's why I'm like, just a little bit. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not. I mean, I don't believe that. Not saying that it's not a woman, but that's why I was like, oh, maybe it's like a train conductor saying something like, "Oh, get on the train." But no, I mean,
at this point, the train station was closed down, so the Rio Grande closed in 1983.
Right.
From the floods.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an active station.
So I guess what I mean, like maybe it was like a train conductor's spirit saying it or
Right,
something.
maybe.
But in this, I mean, that you could totally see that's how it fits. Now, I didn't hear it at first. So how does someone go, I'm listening to this, I'm going through hours of recording.
Right. And it
And
could
then-
be. It could be
Yeah.
literally hours. I mean, 5 hours just for that one.
So how does someone go, oh, that's what it is?
Um,
Because I hear it now because it's in my brain. But at first I didn't hear it.
Right. Well, usually you're just kind of listening along. And again, this one's been amplified and
Right.
we put it
You
on
know.
repeat so you could hear it 3 times in a row. But what you do is you go through and then you just listen for abnormalities, anything that doesn't sound normal. So anytime anyone's not using, if it sounds like someone's whispering, well, everybody in this building knows they're not supposed to whisper right now.
Yeah.
So you go back and you listen. And sometimes there have been times where we've had to listen, 20, 30 times before
Yeah.
we hear what it is they're saying.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't catch the whole sentence.
By
we
the
just
way,
catch the end of it.
when I listen to lyrics, modern day lyrics, no clue. No clue what they're
It's
saying.
like you're a ghost. We can't
Yeah,
understand
I have
you.
no idea unless I see like the actual lyrics. I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's what they're saying. I love you. Oh, I totally thought you said I love pajamas. Anyway,
I've had that experience too.
I have a
What's
major
going on?
problem understanding what lyrics actually say. So that's why I'm okay being like, oh, if that's what you guys caught, that's totally fine because I totally thought lyrics were about food when it was about loving someone. So
Right. What cracks me up about this, though, is I think after we got it, a lot of people were like, see, he pushed her. But what makes me kind of chuckle about that is she doesn't say he pushed me. She says, I think my boyfriend pushed me. So I'm like, that's not really,
So
that's
here's
not
a-
really any evidence right there.
So let's say this is her. He's got to be dead. If he was
Right.
World War One, he's definitely dead.
Right.
Let's say going along with LDS philosophy here, he's dead. They're both in the next life. Do you think that she would know? Oh, he did do it, or he didn't do it. Like, what's your explanation for the idea that a ghost is still on this, like, she's stuck on this one thing that one could be very, very true, or two could be very, very not true. And in theory, she could have learned what the truth was after he came back.
Right. That's a good question. It's one I've actually thought about before because, I mean, if you believe in the church, like in the Latter-day Saint Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like we do, there is kind of this thing that, well, there should be more knowledge after you die, more. But I also wonder how much we're privy to other people's information.
Right.
Like, does she get to know
Yeah.
what he's going on?
If he murdered her, is it
Right?
I
I
mean-
mean, it could be his own
repentance
crucible
process?
to deal
yeah,
with.
Crucible, there
right,
you go, yeah.
to deal with, and she may not be at all privy to
Yeah.
that. Maybe she is. I'm just not sure.
Do you think ghosts get stuck in this, like, limbo area here between the spirit world and Earth?
One thing that I don't know. Have you ever heard of Ghost Town? It's a movie with the guy from The Office, but the British version.
Oh, Jerry. Yeah.
What's his name?
Whatever his
I
name
can't
is.
think of his name right now. But he's in it. It's really funny. And one thing that they say in that that really resonated with me is that ghosts don't have unresolved problems. We do. We can't let them go.
Oh.
And that makes more sense to me. And I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but it just resonated with me that maybe someone would stick around because I still need them.
Yeah.
Or this person still needs them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think if I were murdered, like personally, if I were murdered, I could see being like, hey, could I
Pretty ticked.
go back and like haunt this person
Yeah.
or try and help them or something? Like, I think I might be interested in that
Yeah.
just because that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
Or maybe some people, I think we are presented a lot of choices, and I think maybe some people might pass away and feel like, no, I'm not ready. I still have to deal with this. And I don't know how much of a choice we have in that matter. Maybe we don't have any, but there's so many what ifs in it.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then you know that there are, from the doctrine, we know that 1/3 the host of heaven did not
Yeah.
get bodies.
Yeah.
And they were cast to earth, and they're, here to make it as difficult and hard for us as possible. And so that's something I keep in mind too, because it's partially why I'm so averse to something like a Ouija board, because
Yeah.
it's so easy for them. We don't know. We can't see them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're pushing it around or whatever. Who knows? And pretending to be great grandma, whatever.
Yeah.
And that makes me really nervous because you don't know what they're going to tell you. You don't know how they're going to try and influence
Yeah.
you. But I do know that they're here. And so a lot of the times when I hear or see these things, I do wonder how much of it is them just messing with me.
Yeah.
Or how much of it is actually people who were here who had bodies who then moved on. And there's just so many questions that
Yeah.
we don't have the answers to, that it's hard to imagine the answers to all of it. But you do start thinking about those kinds
Yeah.
of things.
I think that those are the kind of questions. I think those are the questions I just gave you are typically my go-to questions anytime something happens or I see something or hear something or not ghost experiences of my own, but you hear them, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you said there's a photo with this.
Yes. Okay. So this is the one. It was another yellow circle,
Okay.
but it was
Is it this one?
yes.
Okay.
That's the one.
Lauren, look for this one right here. You do have to look. I'm sorry. That one right there. And there's a farther one.
Yeah. So this was just a photo that somebody on the tour took. And if you look above the building, obviously there's the yellow circle and the arrow. And then in that, there's what looks to be an orb. And it kind of has a purplish tinge to it. Okay. And by the way, this is Rio Grande train station.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the front. So the trains are on the other side of the building.
Got it.
But a lot of people have claimed to have seen the purple lady in the women's bathroom, which is right below where that orb is. If you go to the zoomed in one now, yeah, that one. If you look close, and I don't know if you can even zoom in more, you can very clearly see a woman's face.
Like half of a face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, it's purple. And there have been times also where I've done tours where I've had people take pictures where we get purple orbs all over the place. And we were talking about this earlier. So an orb is a speck of light that usually can't be explained.
Yeah.
But orbs can be a little bit difficult because it could be dust. It could be bugs flying through. So there's a lot of things you want to look for. For example, if it's a bug, there's going to be a tail behind it because you can see trajectory.
Okay.
If there's a lot of the time, if there's several spots, it could be dust.
Yeah.
And then if they're, although I do have one with several and they're too big, the specks are too big to be dust. And so it just kind of, you want to look at size, you want to look at all sorts of things. But in this one, what makes this one so special, I mean, obviously there's the face in it, but it's purple. Like
Yeah,
you
there's
can
definitely a
see
tint
the
of
purple
purple.
tinge. Yeah. And we had people, again, on the tour who have taken pictures and have gotten purple orbs. And it's only in that location, and there's not really any way to explain why we're getting purple orbs there. There's nothing around. There's a street light with white light.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that would explain why we would be getting specifically purple orbs. And it's always right around this area where the women's restroom is, where people who have worked in the building and have gone in the building have said that they've heard a woman crying in the restroom.
Oh, that's creepy. Okay.
Right.
All right. Wow. Okay. So that's a crazy story. And the thing is like, I mean, I'm not from Utah, but you don't hear, I've never really heard Utah stories. It sounds like there's lots of ghost stories.
You know what? Utah is a hot spot for paranormal activity. It's
Really?
not just ghost stories. We're in the top 5 for most UFO sightings. And it's not even like, some guy in the middle of the night, like standing in a field, seeing a satellite go by. It's like legitimate, real UFO sightings that, make the government go,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of the Phoenix Lights.
I actually have, yeah.
So I think it was in 1998 in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a mass UFO sighting. And when I say mass, I mean hundreds of thousands of people witnessed
Something.
triangle-shaped ships
Yeah.
flying over Phoenix, Arizona, and these ships were so large they actually blocked out the sun, like the stars. People couldn't even see the stars.
Wow.
And we had at the same time that was happening there were smaller sightings of ships of the same shape with same sort of light features
Yeah.
on them here in Utah, but smaller.
Yeah.
And lots of people report it. And again, back in 1998, we didn't have, video recorders on our phone. And so the people who saw them here in Utah didn't even know that there had been a sighting in Phoenix until the next day that morning. And then, all of a sudden people are putting these pieces together. And we had one even in Utah County, I think it was maybe 5 years ago, in the middle of the day. There was a UFO sighting in Utah County. So from what I've heard, a fireball flew across Utah County, and then 3 lights appeared in the sky, each one of equal difference in the same direction that the fireball went, but they just went, showed up, and then they hovered for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And then at the end of that time, they zoomed off in the same direction as the fireball. I mean, so we've had and then we've also had Bigfoot, lots of Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah. That's Kane.
Right. Right. It is Kane. And then we've had, skinwalkers. Utah is like a huge...
Apparently I was told not to talk about skinwalkers.
Who told you that?
People that are more into this than I am. And they said, do not talk about
They're
skinwalkers.
so interesting, though.
I have never heard of it until someone mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically Native American, I just forgot, like doppelganger or shapeshifter. That's a better word for it.
Okay.
Only a little more gory. They, so the story is that they will kill somebody and then skin them, but be really careful about how they skin them, and then sort of preserve the skin. Then they take the person's bones and they crush them into a powder, eat the bones, which turns their skeletal form into the person, and then they put their skin on.
Okay, I'm officially watching The Office after this to kind of put some comedy in this. Wow, okay, cool.
And then we've got ley lines, which are like natural forms of energy that run underneath the earth. In fact, we've got some major ley lines underneath the Fear Factory, which just happens to be at address 666. That's a real address, Salt Lake City.
Okay, hold on. So, fear line? What?
Fear Factory.
No. But lines. What did you say?
Ley lines.
Ley lines. What is that?
So it's just natural energy that flows underneath the earth.
X-File kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a legitimate thing. I do recall in
the
new
X-Files isn't real. Just kidding. Okay.
I do recall in the new Ghostbusters that they were saying that they couldn't be proven, but there is actually natural lines of energy that run under the earth. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And there are ley lines that run all over Salt Lake City, all over Utah. But some of them go right underneath Fear Factory, which used to be the Portland Cement Works factory. And they have lots of people who have passed away there. And the address does happen to be on 666. And that's not just something they put on the side of the building because it looked cool. That's the legitimate address.
Oh, why not? And
right.
Make a cool Fear Factory out of that.
Right. If you're looking for really good places to go for real hauntings for Halloween, Fear Factory's great. Asylum 49's great. They've both got... real deaths.
Wow. Okay.
So.
All right. So let's talk about this stuff here that you've got on the table. These are some tools. I do want to go over some more pictures, but before we kind of officially run out of time, which by the way, there's no real time limit on this. So whenever you got to go, and Lauren's got to go because I think we're creeping her out. So you've got 4 types of things on the table.
Yes.
And you can go ahead and hold them up So whatever you want to start with.
So there's obviously more things that you can use. Like I said, you can use your cell phone to take pictures. And when you take photos, people have a tendency to want to turn their flash off, but leave it on because you're not going to see anything except for black.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I've also heard that actually you kind of want to go with film.
If you can, but
and same with like cassette recording instead of digital. You want to go with like analog recording and film photos.
Right.
This is what the lady told me that said that she can't sleep during the witch hour. She goes, "What are you doing with it? What kind of camera is that?" Like,
She's
it's
sort of a purist, I think.
yeah. She's like, "Oh," and she also recommends like Soldier's Hollow. She recommended something
Yeah.
up Hobble Creek Canyon.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And
So
anyway,
that's good.
but that's what she said. She said, "Don't avoid digital at all costs."
Nah,
All right.
digital's totally fine.
All right, done. We're
You can
safe.
use digital. You can record on your phone, and again, just use your inside voice. Use your flash. That's always great. Another tool that is awesome is flashlights, but you want to get one where you can sort of unscrew the bottom, and it's just so that you can. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it with this one, but you want to unscrew the bottom. You want to turn it on and then unscrew the bottom just a little bit.
So it kind of.
So that it kind of turns off. Yeah, it's not going to work with this one. So basically the idea is you turn on the flashlight and then you unscrew the bottom until the light goes off. And then, but you do it so that you can just touch it a little bit and then the light will flicker.
Oh.
Like one, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can use it to communicate with spirits. So you ask it a yes or no question.
And then it flickers it for you.
Yes. And always be careful. Don't say, are you a boy or girl? Because
yeah.
how are they going to?
Yes or no questions.
Right. So you say, are you a girl? If the light flickers, then you've got your answer. Same principle with the dowsing rods. So these, again, talking of natural forms of energy underneath the earth, people used to use these to find water. We're talking... Even now, I think people still use it to try and find wells, try and find water.
Do. Yeah.
And so the idea is...
It's not a crazy idea.
Right. And it finds energy. So what you do is you rest it on the side of your palm and then on your finger like that, and then just hold it really gently so that it can swing.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people, this is my favorite tool to use when we do ghost hunts, because you could use
this is like the Ghostbuster tool.
Yeah.
Right here. Okay.
So, same principle. They touch this, it jumps up to the top. There's someone there. You can ask yes or no questions.
Can I hold one?
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of thing. But there are lots of things that can happen with these to make them go off. For example, these ones aren't so bad. We have ones that are more sensitive. You get it too close to a cell phone, it'll make it jump.
Yeah.
Sometimes just knocking it will make it jump, or shaking it will make it jump. In fact, we were doing... we're not allowed to go up to Ted Bundy's house anymore, but a while ago we used to take the tour up to Ted Bundy's.
Bundy.
Right. And we had some ladies on our tour, a group of ladies in high heels.
Uh-huh.
And one of them was holding one of our meters. And we walked down into the property and the meter went off, and she freaked out and she threw my meter. And she ran as fast as she could in her high heels back to the bus. And,
I wouldn't feel safe in the
yeah.
bus if it was Ted Bundy.
Right.
Okay.
There's Ted Bundy. It's one of the few places that I actually, whenever we used to go there, the sheriff's department actually asked us to stop, or maybe it was the police department asked us to stop going up there, because they had given us permission to go there, but then people would go on the tour and they would remember where it was and they'd go up by themselves, and it started to become a real problem. Just people going up there.
Even my time at BYU, there would be a few groups that would go to the Ted Bundy cottage. Or
Yeah. So it was torn down. There's still a little shed that you go down into. It's sort of like a root cellar is what it was. And they can't close it off from what I've heard, because there's still electric boxes and that kind of thing down there. But they tore down the house because they wanted people to stop coming and messing. And they had a shed for a while, for a long time, but they ended up tearing that down too, because they just did not like.
All right, so let's real quick talk about Ted Bundy.
Okay.
Because he went to the U, I went to BYU, so that's
Right.
like the one thing that BYU has over the U. All right, so Ted Bundy, crazy serial killer,
Totally
rapist,
crazy. Yeah.
mentally not. I mean, all serial killers are not all there. There's something wrong.
There's something not quite right. Absolutely.
What's that show that we're watching, Lauren? That has. No, not Ted Bundy tapes, but it's the guys, like, it's the FBI starting to interview these people. Mindhunter. Have you seen that? Oh, you should watch that.
Mm-mm.
It's really good. And we think the next season's going to be Ted Bundy, but they've
Okay.
kind of gone through like some well-known serial killers and they interview them. And this is a real. I don't know if the actual events are of the FBI is real, but it's essentially it's a psychoanalysis department for the FBI,
Right.
which is brand new. Anyway, very. I mean, it just basically proves that you can know if this person is going to be a serial killer or not, depending on the actions and the different
Right.
criteria that they grew up. Ted Bundy definitely had some crazy stuff. So, all right, Ted Bundy, crazy serial killer. Ironically, I
That's
was a missionary
totally
in
crazy.
Seattle,
Oh, really?
and then obviously live here in Utah. So I kind of feel
Have you
like
ever been to Florida?
I've been to Florida.
There you go.
Yeah,
All three.
I didn't go to. I think it was in Tallahassee though.
I don't recall.
It was northern Florida. I haven't been to northern Florida, but still, I'm just like, oh man.
You hit them all.
Yeah, when we watched a few of them, there's a documentary and then the new movie that came out with the High School Musical guy,
Zac Efron.
Zach, yeah, whatever his name is.
Right.
So
that guy.
yeah, that guy. So he actually did a really good job. Are you
It looks so creepy. I
are
couldn't
you
watch
making
it.
fun of me? Yeah, oh, it was.
Zac Efron.
Yeah, whoever that guy is.
I couldn't watch it. I was like, are they
High School
trying to
Musical.
make-
I can watch it either. Yeah, sorry.
There's too much. I had to watch that one. It was in my high school. I had to.
Oh, that's right. It's like East High, right? Up in
I was
Salt Lake.
like, that's my locker. That's my homeroom.
And that's awesome.
But yeah,
Alright.
it was too creepy. I was like, are they trying to make him like a romantic villain? I don't know.
I think they were trying to give it from his perspective too, like what
Ugh.
he believed, how it went.
No, he.
know?
Yeah, kind of.
It was crazy. Okay, so he
creeps me
kills all
out.
these girls all over the
Yeah.
place, and multiple states wanted him.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
oh,
oh,
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Colorado too. Been to Colorado. That's where
Right.
he jumped out of the
That's
courthouse.
right.
Anyway, so but I don't know about his place here in Salt Lake. To be honest, I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm. The murder house.
Did he actually murder people there?
Oh yeah, it was like a big. It was like his hub, and in the root cellar.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he
the
would
thing
take.
that's still there.
Yeah, he would exactly. They did try to board it off, and actually, it was one of my. I'm not a very nice person, so we take tours there, and they had put a big, just one piece of board right on in front of it, and a tree had fallen down, and some kids or someone, I don't know who it was, used it as like a ram, and they made a big hole in this thing, and it was about this high up in the door, and we'd go down there, and I would tell the stories, and then I would get everyone to crawl in and go down, and then as soon as they were down the stairs, I
You
would
tell him what happened down there.
no, I would scream like I was like being killed, scream.
Yeah.
And I remember once doing this, and I had a guy on the tour. He must have been like 6'6", and I don't know, 200 pounds, 250 pounds. I don't know, just a huge guy. And I screamed, and he turned around and looked at me, and he said, "I think I just peed myself a little."
Oh,
I was
gosh.
like, "Thank you for the compliment."
Oh,
And
man.
my boss also, he didn't know I'd started doing that. And the
Mm.
first time he heard me scream, he was like, "What the?" He's like, "You sound like the girl at the beginning of horror movies that gets murdered." I'm like,
Yep.
"I don't want to be that girl." But that was my favorite. But then somebody knocked the whole door down. And so it's not as fun when they can get out easily. But when they all have to, get back through that hole, super funny to watch them all
yeah.
scurry
Oh,
and try
yeah.
and
Yeah,
climb
they
through.
know
All.
the guy.
That was my favorite thing. But yeah, Ted Bundy, he would take him down there and chain him up, and then basically he'd play with them. That was his thing. Like change their clothes, dye their hair, paint their fingernails. He was and his
After they're dead or before?
both.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes, or at least we've heard stories. I don't know if you've heard about the lady who came forward recently who said that she was one of his victims and she escaped. He apparently took her up the canyon and he would strangle her and then bring her back and then strangle her and bring her back and meanwhile raping her, and at some point he turned around to do something and she kind of dazedly came out of it and ran and jumped in a river, or well, she didn't jump in the river, I think she fell into the river, which probably ended up saving her.
Yeah.
But she came forward and they've been saying that it sounds legitimate, like this, was a real victim, and just based on other things. But Ted Bundy tapes, you mentioned, I know they did something like that on Netflix. There were actually tapes that they recorded of him.
Yeah.
And one thing that made him so incredibly creepy is he had to have control. And after he was caught, the only way he could really have control in this circumstance, and of course, there's quite a bit of gloating. Once you know you've been caught, you want to tell people. You want people to know. You want to tell your stories. And one of the things he would do to maintain control is he would whisper in these tapes. So they would be talking to him, and his voice would he'd talk really quietly. So everyone in the room had to really
tone in, lean in,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But one of the things that he said is I think he mentioned somewhere around 30 bodies. I might be getting this, like 30 people. I think that's what he talked about.
About here in Utah.
Right.
Or just total?
Total, I think. But he only gave, I think, around 30. It might have been 33. I can't remember. I'm forgetting all of these. Like, it's in there. But he told them, you will be finding bodies in these hills for hundreds of years. Wow. Like, they estimate that it's probably somewhere between 100 and 150 people that he killed, women that he killed. And 30 was all he would give because he wanted to brag, but he also wanted, I think it's also that thing, this sort of legendary. How many bodies are we going to find? You'll never find them all.
Yeah.
And people still talk about that. Like, they go hiking up Parley's Canyon. That's where Hogle Zoo is, right? Parley's Canyon?
I think so.
Yeah.
I've never been.
And so, but people still talk about it. Like, are we going to find a body here? And then you pair it with the fact that that's the same canyon where the Donner Party came through. Mm-hmm. And so, this is already a creepy canyon.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was not cool.
No.
He was a creepy guy.
Do people feel anything over there, or?
I do. Every time I go, I don't often have experiences where I don't feel comfortable, but every time I've been there, I am on high alert. And part of it is because one of the first times I went there, and thankfully I wasn't with a tour group at the time. I was practicing the stories, and I just was with a friend. And there are some old cement blocks that have sort of holes in them like this, and then the rebar that comes out. Mm-hmm. And I was walking around and just happened to peer into one of these cement blocks with the big, sort of bowl, and it was filled with blood. And I was like, okay, we're leaving. Right. And so that there are still crazies that go up there and kill animals or do whatever it is the heck they're doing. And then there was another time I went, and I wasn't a tour guide. I was still working with the company, but I just went with my friend for Halloween on one of the other tour guides' tours. And we were walking out of the property, and we all stopped by this one spot. And I don't even remember why we stopped there, but my friend took a picture and she showed it to me, and there were like 5 orbs in it. And if the closer you looked at the orbs, you could see faces in each of the orbs. And they were all kind of around Lola Bottomy, who was the tour guide of the night. And that evening, as she was telling that story, I wasn't even listening to her because the presence there was so strong and so icky that I was just watching behind us and around us. I was like, if something's going to sneak up, I'm going to be the first one to know that it's coming. But yeah, a lot of people have had kind of experiences there. A lot of people will leave and just be like, oh, I did not feel good. I did not feel right. We got on an EVP there once. We got Ted Bundy's grandpa's name, which kind of his father. He thought it was his father, but it was his grandpa who raised him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And his name turned up on one of the EVPs. We also had actually in that same recording, we had a male voice say his grandfather's name. And then we heard a girl's voice say, "I just want to go home." And it was not someone from the group, because it was the bus driver, who was, so the property's way down over here, and you have to get off the bus up a hill and walk down and then cross a riverbed and go over. So it wouldn't have been any of us. Like, you could hear people yelling or talking, but it wasn't that. And that one was particularly poignant, I guess, because one of the stories that we tell about Ted Bundy is sort of a traveling hitchhiker story, about this guy who was coming down Parley's Canyon, and he saw a girl, and this was during the day. He saw a girl running down the canyon, and she was covered in blood. And he pulled over, was able to get her into his car, and he kept on asking her, "What's your name? What happened to you? I'm taking you to the hospital. What can I do for you?" And she sort of fetal positioned and was rocking and just kept on saying, "I just want to go home. I just want to go home." And that story, when I first heard it, I was like, "Ooh, that's really creepy." And actually, that was one of the stories, one of the only stories when I was learning them, that really, I had a hard time sleeping that night after I heard that story. But I've heard traveling hitchhiker stories before, and so I was like, it's just creepy, but it's not really real. So when we got that EVP, and there was clearly a girl's voice on it saying, "I just want to go home." And mind you, we didn't tell that story at Ted Bundy's house. We would tell it as we were driving down the canyon. So no one on our tour had even heard that story yet. And then all of a sudden, we've got this girl's voice while everybody's still at the property. "I just want to go home." And I was like, dang. Right.
Oh,
I was, that one freaked me out a little bit. But yeah,
I'm
Ted
definitely
Bundy,
watching all of The Office after this. Okay.
We're going to binge watch the entire series.
Yes. Okay, so Ted Bundy's a creeper.
He is
a
creeper.
The other thing, too, I think that makes it like really crazy, besides the fact that he was a serial killer, is that it was not in our lifetime, but really close.
Yeah.
For
we
you
know
and I, at
people
least, right? Yeah, we know people, and we also live
had
here.
Experiences,
where that like just occurred versus, like, I'm sure there was a Ted Bundy in Scotland.
Right.
And I mean, whether he was known by name or not, or by a alias name, there probably was someone.
Jack the Ripper, not
Exactly.
that far away. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, well, okay, that's far away, or that was 200 years ago, or something like that, or 100 years ago. And so it's like, this is like recent.
Really close. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you would pay me to go down that cellar.
Right.
I seriously would not.
I never went down.
I would not
never
go
went
down. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's so here's a question. I see from one of your photos here.
Oh, speaking of which, I do have a Ted Bundy picture here.
Oh, okay. Lauren's saying no.
Okay, no. It's a yellow circle, and it's the middle yellow circle.
This one?
Yes.
This is no.
Yeah.
Gosh, dang it, Lauren, this one.
Yep, yeah, that's the one. That was after everyone. So you see that person there? That obviously looks like a real person.
It actually looks like Eminem if he was walking in the dark. That's what I thought.
Oh, it does.
Like, got a hoodie on.
Right.
Anyway.
When I first saw this, I was like, "Oh, that's someone on the tour."
Eminem.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I first saw this and I was like, "That's someone on the tour." Nope. Everyone was out. There was nobody down there.
So why is someone? Here's the question I have: why is someone taking a picture? Just to
the tour guide.
Is a tour guide took this picture?
Yeah. We just, like, a lot of us, and even people on the tour, because we tell them throughout the tour, take pictures, and then later, if you're going through them and you see anything, send them to us, and then we'll have our Paul Wheeler's the owner of Grim Ghost Tours, and like I think I said already, he's a professional photographer, and he will legitimize the photograph, and if it's the real deal, it will go on our Facebook page.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy, again, it makes me think of like a rapper.
I know.
For whatever reason.
What is he doing?
But either way, I mean, that doesn't mean that it's not.
But yeah, like, you can see the jeans and the shirt, and it's like he's got a hoodie on with the bandana underneath the hoodie.
Yeah.
But no, there was no one there. And the thing is when they took this photo, they couldn't even see this. Nobody saw what you see in this photo. It wasn't until later when they were looking at it
Mm.
that they saw anything. And then another thing that we do is we tell people when you take photos, take several in order, like 3 to 5, right? Like immediately one right after the other. And then that way you can see, well, there's nothing in the first one or the second one or the third one, but there's something in the fourth one and there's nothing in the fifth one. And that was the case with this one.
Wow.
Out of 3 to 5 photos, this was the only one that showed this. And it was, again, it was click, 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 that fast. So it's not like someone could have run in for that photo and then run out.
Yeah.
You would have seen the movement.
Yep. Okay. Oh, yeah. Darn it. Dang. Okay. I'm just looking at all these photos. Okay, you have a photo of Lily E. Gray, victim of the beast. I've actually heard of. I don't know the story, but I've seen this picture before.
Right.
What's the story? So it's. Do you have that? Yeah. Do you mind? Can you maybe a little bit bigger? Do the Control Plus.
So this is on the Salt Lake City tour, and we only do this Salt Lake City Cemetery tour.
Okay.
We only do this one in the summer because we walk through the cemetery.
Is it because there's just snow on it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it's just hard to walk through. The cemetery is on a hill.
Okay. Oh, this is the Salt Lake one.
Yeah, Salt Lake Cemetery.
It's crazy hills. Okay.
Yeah. 9.5 miles of road.
Yeah.
250 acres. And obviously we don't walk all of it, but it's still quite a bit uphill, and it's just hard to do it during the winter. It's too cold and too difficult, and a lot of the graves end up just being covered anyway. But so Lily E. Gray, you can see she wasn't even really very old. And obviously her tombstone is of interest because of the victim of the beast. Lots of people put epitaphs on their graves, but usually it says stuff like beloved mother, or a scripture, or a poem, or eternal family, or whatever, something. And so victim of the beast, that's a little shocking. We're not and unfortunately we don't really know the story behind it. There are theories.
Really? There's no concrete story. There's no family members that know.
There are 3 theories that if we could really nail down who she was, that's the other problem, is there's not really a lot of records. I did have somebody on my tour once.
She died in 1958. It's not like it was
think.
like she died in 1858.
But there was one girl on one of my tours who looked up, and she's like, "Oh, it's this one. This is the real story." But then when I was digging into the site that she found later on, even it's what they think.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows. It's just what they thought. But the 3 stories we have are, so during this time period, vehicles hadn't really been around all that long.
Yeah.
And people referred to them as the beasts of the road.
Okay.
And during that time, there was a subhighway off of Highway 66 called Highway 666. And so one of the theories is that she died in a car accident on Highway 66 or Subhighway 666. So victim of the beast 666. Another theory is there was a Lily E. Gray who was married to, I want to say, Roger. Sorry, Paul, if I'm getting this wrong. But Roger Gray, they hadn't been married all that long, but he was paranoid and a little crazy. He'd go around, he stole an umbrella once. I mean, he just did weird things. She was married to him, and one of the, or at least one of the stories, if it's that Lily, she was married to this guy. And he was a conspiracy theorist and really did not like the government. And so that's the other theory, that she was killed, and anyway, the story is that he claims that she was killed through government conspiracy. And so the government would be the beast, victim of the beast 666.
Got it. Wow.
And then the last story is that there was a Lily Gray who was involved during the time with Aleister Crowley, who was
That sounds
a
familiar.
cultist. Leonard Skinner wrote a song about him. I can't think of it right now, but he was he ran a cult, really creepy guy, and one of the theories is that he had her killed because she tried to leave the cult. And so again, victim of the beast, 666.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
those are the three. The last one seems to be the most popular, although, but partially that one's the most popular because even though it seems like she very well could have been married to Roger,
Yeah.
he's buried in a completely separate part of the cemetery, which
Yeah.
really doesn't make sense. And so,
Or she was possessed.
right, maybe it
And
could
the
be.
family just said,
Theory
"Here
number
you go."
4.
Yeah. Great.
But
That's what
yeah.
I would think. I'm like, oh, they just thought she was possessed. So I mean, Latter-day Saints don't typically believe in possession.
No,
You know,
I mean
so-
maybe. I mean, there is that instance
degree.
in the Bible
Yeah.
where Christ threw the spirits out of
the pigs or into the pigs.
right?
And pigs ran into the water and died.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of a thing.
I guess there is. I mean, like I've heard stories of like a mission president was, this 2 missionaries. One missionary was rolling around acting like a pig and couldn't stop, and then he got his mission president. Mission president came over and just started laughing, and then the missionary stopped doing it. Anyway, I don't know. It's always like these weird folklore stuff. So, weird stuff. Anyway.
It does sound creepy.
Yeah, it also sounds a little weird. Like, why would you do it as a pig? Like, why would you be a pig? Yeah, drink that Verner's. It's good.
Yeah,
let's get some real life stuff here. Okay, so here's a question for you. Oh, actually, I do want to go over this picture of this like
Right.
with weird figure.
I
I think it's the
wondered.
next one over. There it is.
I'd
There
wondered
it
if
is.
you'd want that one.
I do want. I mean, I want all of them to be honest, but we just don't have time. We'll have to have you over again.
Right.
Or just go on Grim Tours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good tour to go on,
Yeah.
and I think they may have 3 going right now.
Cool.
The Outer Reaches and Old Town, and then I think they're still doing Fort Douglas. And then during the summer they have a Salt Lake City Cemetery tour. But then they do ghost hunts all year round.
Wow.
So Fear Factory, they do Asylum 49, they do Lava Hot Springs, Fort Douglas.
Yeah, I'm not going to Lava Hot Springs after hearing of a ghost story. No desire of going into water I can't see the bottom of. So, yeah.
It's
Okay.
not that bad. It's like a pool.
Yeah, even then,
You're
I'm
like, no, I'm
okay.
good.
No, I'm good. Like if there's one fear that I actually have is and it's a legitimate phobia, but it's like not knowing what's underneath you in the water.
Yeah, that is creepy.
Like I know that this giant squid or the kraken. Actually, I would love to see the kraken. If it's real, I want to see it. But if it is real and I don't know that it's real, and then it shows up, yeah, I'm okay.
You know what? I think a lot of people actually have fears like that. I have my cousin married a gal from Nigeria. She's one of my best friends. She's so great. She will never go swimming, like in pools or anything, because they had stories about mermaids in Nigeria, where she was from, that would like pull you under.
Oh, man.
And so she's like, nope, I'm not. We're all swimming, and she's sitting on the edge of the pool. We're like, come on in. She's like, no,
Yeah, I'm good.
not getting in there.
Yeah.
It's I think it's a thing, water. And, yeah.
All right, so this guy, do we have it pulled up, Lauren? This guy looks like he's like huddled into the blizzard and has a headlight on and some weird light shining on his shoulder. That's, if I didn't know, like, oh, this is a ghost story behind this, that's what I would think. Or I would just think it's a drawing. So tell us about this.
Okay. So, a lot of people don't know this, but there are underground tunnels
Yes.
underneath Salt Lake City, all over the place.
And Utah, Provo.
right.
They're like it's
Yeah,
sealed
yeah.
off. It was
And Seattle.
and Seattle. Well, that's because
They built the city over the
city
city.
over it. But yes,
But
go
yeah,
ahead.
underground tunnels. And
By the way, they built the tunnels to kind of hide because they were polygamists. They were hiding from the government. So anyway, go ahead.
at the Provo one?
All of them, all of the tunnels. Not that was their only purpose,
Okay. I'm like,
but
I
that
don't
was
know
a
if I heard
big
that one.
purpose. Like
But it makes sense.
like
yeah.
John Taylor, the third prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is hid like his last year of life, like he was hiding in one of the tunnels
That sounds terrible.
because they were trying to arrest him. Anyway, in fact, he died in one of the tunnels up in not Brigham, Brigham City. I think so. Somewhere up north, somewhere north of Salt Lake. Like he
That
died
is
in
so
the
depressing.
tunnel. Anyway, so yeah, there are tunnels everywhere,
They are. They're
and
everywhere.
some of them are still active.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Although
probably what you're going to go over.
most of the ones in Salt Lake, as far as I know, are closed down, except for ones around Temple Square that they use to,
Just between the buildings.
yeah. Like for example, to go from the temple over to,
Here, get a little bit closer to the mic. Sorry.
oh
There
sorry,
you go. Yeah.
to the temple to like parking lots or whatever, just so that the president and
Yeah.
the apostles can
Yeah.
travel without,
Or even the
going
Tabernacle
around.
Choir. Well,
Yeah.
or whatever they're called now. Yeah.
Right. Oh, what are they called now?
Tabernacle.
Choir at Temple's. No.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay. So
Something really long.
So there's these tunnels.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So, if you go downtown, there's the city county building, which used to double as the courthouse, but now they've made another courthouse, which is across the street, and then behind
It's
it,
a gorgeous building too.
right? It's so
awesome.
beautiful,
Yeah.
very gothic in nature, which was sort of unusual for
Yeah.
Salt Lake City. It's not really what they were going for, but that's how that building turned out. And then behind it was the Salt Lake City Library, but before that it was the jail.
Oh, I didn't
And
know that.
so they had a tunnel that went from the jail to the courthouse so that they could take prisoners underneath. And the last person who used that tunnel would be, before they closed it down,
Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
Oh crap.
He was the last person that they took underneath, and which makes sense. Could you imagine taking Ted Bundy across the street?
Oh yeah.
Like, he would have been shot.
Yeah.
Because people knew who he was. They knew what he'd been doing. People wanted him dead.
Yeah.
So he was the last person to use it, and then they closed it down. And as far as I know, it's not in use now at all. Just completely closed off. But every once in a while, security guards will go down there, just make sure that it's clear, turn off lights, whatever. So that picture was taken by a security guard, and the lights were completely off downstairs. He just snapped a photo with his phone. Because I think from what I heard, he maybe saw something and wasn't sure, so just took a photo, wanted to get out of there, looked at it later, and this is what he saw. What's interesting about this is if you look at it, it kind of looks like he's wearing a straitjacket,
Yes.
which some of the prisoners may have done.
Or at least was shackled.
Mm-hmm.
And is
Oh,
holding
yeah.
his hands close
Right.
together because that's
Because the
usually
shackles
when
are
you're
in front
shackled.
of him and you're scooting down, right? Exactly. And for the time period that it would have been used, those are the kinds of shackles, absolutely, that they would have used.
Okay.
So that's that story. We don't know who he was or whatever, but it's a compelling photo for sure.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's very interesting. So I mean, obviously, like I said, I mean, this looks like something that could be digitized or a painting or, but I mean, it's very interesting. The story behind it obviously
Right.
kind of gives some like, oh, interesting how that
And
works.
there are a lot of hauntings that have taken place inside of the city county building, quite a few. And we get photos there all the time. All the time. It's really, really regular. And so to hear that a security guard had taken a photo on his cell phone, underneath the building didn't surprise us at all. So we have a story of
When
a
was
bride.
this one taken again?
It was before I started working there, so I'm not totally positive, but at least I'd say probably within the last 10 years,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like
okay.
that. But yeah, there's a bride that killed herself at the city county building, and someone took a photo of the steps where she would have landed, and it looks like there's just the train of a wedding dress, and it looks like it's going up the stairs.
Wow.
There was a judge that was sort of a corrupt judge who worked in the building and was cursed, and people have taken lots of photos of what looks to be a judge standing in a window. I had one once just while we were on the bus. The driver just started snapping pictures up at the window, and she caught it.
Oh, wow.
Looked like a judge just standing there looking out the window at us. And again, this was at night, so we've gotten a lot of photos there. And if you take our EMF detector, which is this fun little device there, there's a spot right in front of the steps that this will go off almost every time. And a lot of people say, well, it's got to be something underneath, but there's a lot of concrete.
Or
so
cell
there's not,
signal.
Right. Well, there's no towers above, which is a big sign we look for. And there's quite a bit of thick concrete underneath. But what's super compelling about it, that makes us think that it's a legitimate thing, is though, even though it goes off every time, so if the steps are about, I think 15 feet wide, something like that, the area always moves. So it's only about 10 feet of the 15 feet where the light will go, or the EMF detector will go off. And then it vacillates from side to side. So it's never the same 10 feet within the 15 feet. It's always, today it's this patch or it's that patch. And to us, that feels like pacing, like there's a ghost there pacing, and they're not pacing in the same spot. And we tend to think that it's probably the bride walking back and forth because she was waiting for her fiance to come and he never did. And she nosedived off the little balcony there. Wow. Which was also interesting because I don't know if you know this about suicides, but they don't go head first. When someone wants to kill themselves by jumping, they always go feet first. Yeah. But that wasn't the case with the bride. So there's a lot of kind of speculation with her story. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you typically don't go head first.
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow. Well, so a couple, I guess at least one last question that could go on for a tangent, but as far as like believing in these things, there's plenty of like agnostics, not so much agnostics, but like atheists, and be like, okay, here's an explanation for this. Boom, 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 boom. Do you feel confident enough that if someone followed you that's like been able to prove other people wrong for whatever reason, that you feel comfortable, like, yeah, like there's no way to unexplain it? Because that's the other thing too, is like as far as a God, like there's no real way to prove that there's a God. Like we don't have a God to like, kind of like a ghost, right?
You can't there.
Yeah, he's not right there. You can't really talk to him face to face, at least in in the, like how we're talking right now. But then there's also no way to prove that there's not a God. You can't prove like, well, just because you don't see him doesn't mean he's not there. And so what's your response to someone that maybe, and there's plenty of atheists that I've heard that go, here's how ghosts are false. And obviously the orbs is dust. That's the biggest one. And then a trigger of the mind. Like, what do you say? Like, do you feel confident about that with what we've talked about and many, many other things? I know we've barely scratched the surface. Do you feel confident that that's the case?
Yeah, I don't think they can disprove it. I think they could, there are some things they could disprove, but I don't think that they could absolutely prove that ghosts aren't real. It's just like we can't absolutely prove that they are real. But the one thing that I think those of us who do believe in this stuff have over it is that we do get recordings, we do get photos that can't be explained, and by looking at them, you can take them to anyone who knows about digital photography or photography in general, and can look at the photo and say, yeah, this hasn't been doctored. And so how do you explain that? Yeah. Well, it could maybe, some of those things could be specks of dust, but like the one that we just showed you that looked like the guy was in the straitjacket, there's no way you can prove that that's not. Yeah. That's not real. If the photo hasn't been doctored, then, how do you prove that? Or, we have another photo in here, that was from Lava Hot Springs.
I can't stop looking at it, by the way.
Right.
It's hard to not look at them. Okay.
It's weird. And it's from Lava Hot Springs, and, it's probably one of the most, for me, compelling photos that I've seen.
Which one is it?
It is, Okay, so the first one looks
Okay, it is these
like
ones.
this. It's got the red lamp in it. Okay, so this was at Lava Hot Springs, which is now a hotel, but before it was a hotel, it was a retirement home.
Okay.
And they came in this room, and these rooms are just tiny. There's basically barely enough room for a bed, mostly in these rooms. They don't have bathrooms. You have to go across the hall to use, like a shared public bathroom in them. And they took this picture from the door. There was no one in this room. But if you look at this photo, if you go to the next one, it very, very clearly looks like there's an old woman sitting in a chair next to the window, glasses on with a shawl around her body.
Uh-huh.
The only person in that room wasn't even in the room, the photographer taking that picture. She would have had to have been sitting right next to the window to get that photograph the way that it was. But if you go back, there's no one there. There's nothing there. There's no chair. There's no nothing.
Yeah. So how do you, like, I mean, obviously someone could have put this image in. I mean, how do you, I guess you have to take the word of the guy that says, yeah, this isn't doctored.
Paul. Yeah. And I do. He is not only like one of the nicest people I've ever met, but very, very honest, at least from my experience. I don't see that he has any reason to lie. I have seen times where he's looked at a photo and been like, no, like that's not real. He wants real stuff. He wants to find real stuff. He wants to see it. He doesn't want to be tricked, and he doesn't want to trick anyone. He wants to be a resource that people can come to, that they feel like this is an honest person who's going to give us the real deal, the real juice, and he strives for that. And I believe him.
All I know is that, this stuff obviously intrigues me. I have no doubt that there's a lot of, I think forever will be skeptical until God tells me,
right,
hey,
I'm that way too.
This was real. But at the same time, like, I'm all for seeing this evidence, or this like proof. I like the stories. A lot of people say, oh, don't mess with that stuff. It can get you. And that's that, like the skinwalkers, like, don't even talk about it. Like, oh, okay. Like, like I asked, like, who's, and that's how we got introduced. Like, who's into paranormal stuff? And you should go back to it. There's a couple like, oh, you don't even touch it. So very, very interesting. But I freaking love it. That's the hard part, is like, how do you not? It's
fascinating.
It is fascinating. I'm not into the blood and gore stuff. Like, I'm okay not watching those movies, but I'm okay watching like the others. Have you with
I haven't.
I hate.
It.
Oh, it's really good.
Okay.
What's her name? She's married to Tom Cruise.
Oh.
Not Katie Holmes. Before Katie Holmes. She was.
It's right on the tip of my tongue. She's
Nicole Kidman. Yeah, it's actually really good.
Okay.
Lauren here is a genius, and she knew like halfway through what was going on, but I didn't know until the very end. I won't spoil it for you, but like that stuff, like I'm like, holy smokes! Like, what if that's real? Like, is that possible? And as Latter-day Saints, we believe that the spirit world, where the spirits go afterwards, I'm just gonna put it out there, is here on Earth,
right,
in another dimension. So why, if the veil is
parallel
thin,
dimension.
It's a parallel dimension. Why? And it's not as kooky as it sounds. It probably does sound kooky, actually, to the people that haven't heard that before. But it's like,
but it makes sense. They've got to have a place to be, and it would make sense that they would be where they're from.
Yeah.
Right? Especially close to their family members.
Yeah.
Close to the people that they care about.
If you believe in guardian angels, then why not? Right?
And it's like I mentioned that with psychics, there's kind of always, that doesn't make sense to me, because how would my family member know to go to them? But at the same time, if you're religious, it makes sense that your family members would go to the temple. Yeah. Whether that be our temple or a mosque or, wherever, like they will go to a place that's familiar to them. Yeah. And so it makes sense.
Makes sense. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm definitely skeptic because I've seen way too many ghost TV shows.
Right.
They do ruin it for you.
They do ruin it for you, don't they? I mean, they're fun to watch, but after you've seen
at least a few of them.
Right. You're starting to go,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Now you're just
There was
hamming
one,
it up.
I think it was Ghost Stories. I don't remember which one it was. I'm like, no, these guys are, now they're the legit ones. And it's because he had like a scratch on his body. I was like, yeah, okay. It was like, I had to wake up the next day and go, yeah, that wasn't real. Okay. It's just Hollywood. And anyone that's been in Hollywood knows that 90% of the stuff that we see on TV that's supposed to be real is not
Right.
real.
Although now that you say that, though, we did have a guy on one of our tours who was provoking a ghost, and that was one of the EVPs that my boss sent me.
Okay,
where we-
let's hear it. Let's
okay.
hear it. Let's just do it. All right, so he's provoking the ghost.
He is, and he left with scratches. This guy, like, that he couldn't explain, and I'm like, how could they do that? They don't even have a body. But at the same time, we were like, how did he get these scratches? So let me see if I can. But we got this EVP, and then he left with the scratches, and it was a lot of weirdness.
So part of the reason why I stopped doing my ghost videos is because one person's like, you got to be careful what you do. Because we were like, again, faking it. But like we could have done, I mean, it's kind of like playing the Ouija board, faking it, right? And then before you know it, something crazy
You
could
definitely
happen.
do need to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually
Even-
a big reason why we stopped. I was like, okay.
Don't want to mess with it. We
Yeah.
even had two ghost tour guides who were doing a hunt at the Fear Factory, and they had one of the tour guides had her, I think she was 16-year-old daughter there at the time, and they had a really creepy experience, and one of them refused to ever even go back to the Fear Factory. She was like, I'm done with that.
Okay. All right, let's hear this. What's it saying? Go.
So, from best we can tell, we are hearing, oh, they got more. Hear me, my dad means to choke the life out of me. Oops. Hear me. You can hear the choke.
Yeah, you can
He
hear it.
puts the emphasis on the choke.
Yeah. My dad needs to choke the life out of me.
Yeah.
Yep. That one. Okay. All right.
That's just so that you
Yeah.
have to watch 2 seasons of The
Yeah.
Office
Okay.
tonight before you go
All
to
the lights
sleep.
on.
Right.
Blinds closed. I mean, not blinds are closed at night anyway. But yeah,
But originally, when we heard that, the guy had been provoking ghosts, which, by the way, we are always like, don't do that. Don't provoke them. They will talk to you if you were nice to them. You don't have to be mean. But this guy went in and he was provoking, and I feel like that, you're just asking for it when you
Yeah.
do that. And then he was the one. Originally, we heard this. All we heard was choke the life out of you. Or we thought it was saying choke the life out of you, and we thought that was a response to the provoking. But I guess he's been listening to it more and added some this is what he was saying in there, but it could still be a response to the provoking,
Yeah. Whew, okay. Well, on that note, ghosts can be very real. You want to be careful how you do it, but at the same time, curiosity. I was about to say curiosity. I don't think necessarily kills the cat with this. It's okay. It's okay to look more
just
into
be
it.
careful.
Yeah, just be smart. Obviously, with that last
Right.
one.
Don't provoke
Yeah,
ghosts.
do not provoke
It's a
them.
horrible idea.
Any where can they go if they're here in Salt Lake in Utah? Where can they go? What's the website?
GrimGhostTours.com.
Okay. And you said that you've actually been writing some books. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. So I
Go ahead.
I do write mystery.
Yeah, bring it out.
But they're not necessarily based in ghosts, but yeah, I'm an author. So I've got this
That's
series.
cool. That's a cool cover.
This is the first book in the series and the second one. So this is based, it's a murder mystery based on Pride and Prejudice with, I've got a cop who was sent into a resort to solve a murder mystery. And
The
then this
Shining.
one,
Sorry.
not quite. And then the second book in the series is Account 1314. This is a retelling of the Count of Monte Cristo again with a murder mystery twist.
Oh.
And then the third book in the stories, which I wish I had a copy I could have brought of that, because that one is based on the movie Ghost.
Oh.
And it's called Dead to Rights. But I must be, I do like ghost stories, because they do tend to pop up, and ghosts pop up in all of these books.
Really?
I just can't seem to help myself. Also, my publisher, she actually before me, she only published Sweet Romance, but she wanted my books. And so she opened a new branch called Hollow Orchard. And now she's got me and a thriller writer. So I do cozy mystery. She's got a thriller writer, and I don't know if she has anyone else yet. But what was funny is originally we were trying to figure out how to market them. And I had a little bit of romance, but I didn't just pile it on. And she was like, you know that these people are going to have to touch at some point, right? And I was like, they do touch. Last page, last paragraph, last sentence, they kiss even. I don't know what more you could want from me. So she made me go back and add more, romance. But so that was kind of a weird learning curve for me. But I was like, and I thought, well, maybe I could just write a sweet romance. But every time I try, someone ends up dead. Like I can't, like in my stories, I'm like, someone's going to die. It's just, I tried to write just a straight up romance and I couldn't do it.
All right. So a professional ghost hunter, an author, a published author.
Yes.
And a botanist. You were talking about this earlier, that you take care of plants. That's awesome. So the question is what do you not do?
What do I not do? Ooh, there's a lot of things I don't. I don't eat onions. Good thing, especially on hamburgers. They just get in the way of the meat and the cheese. And they have a weird, not friendly texture.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, Emily, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
This is crazy. This definitely, you hear these things, you see it on TV, but here it is, like right in front of me. This is crazy. All I know is
it's interesting.
It is very interesting, and I want to hear more. So, well, maybe I try to do this seasonal themed, but maybe we'll have you come on again.
Yeah, for sure.
Not maybe. You will. But the question is, will it be before next Halloween?
We could do it about plants even.
Oh, there we go.
Do you have an audience for plants?
Maybe. I don't know.
One.
Oh, that was Lauren. That's great. All right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Shop top, shop it over.